What I noticed was that people who are in pain and survival, we really live in a little bit of a faithless existence. My first boyfriend was involved in a car accident and became quadriplegic. I was 18 at the time, he was 19, brought a man back to life who drowned, and I was doing the chest compressions. Had a real out-of-body experience, like my hands and my body had been taken over to be in this place at this time. I knew that I was meant to be there.
Hello, beautiful questers, and a warm welcome to the OneQuest podcast. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us on this journey of learning and self-discovery.
Whether you're unwinding, seeking a moment of peace, or just indulging in some well-deserved you time, we're here to sprinkle a little joy and a whole lot of inspiration into your day. Our guests are not just mentors in wellness and self-improvement, they are adventurers at heart, dreamers in spirit and storytellers by nature, sharing their unique paths and life lessons. So let's embark on this tapestry of tales together.
Be prepared for moments that move you, narratives that nurture, and reflections that resonate with your own journey. Before we dive in, if you enjoy our show, please subscribe and share. Your support enables us to feature more amazing guests and deliver impactful conversations. Together, we can inspire a billion lives. Please note that some episodes may cover sensitive topics like abuse, mental health struggles, and personal challenges. If you find the content overwhelming, feel free to step back and take care of yourself. Remember, it's okay to pause and return when you're ready.
Hello, Tegan.
Hello.
How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm really good. Thanks for having me here.
Excellent. We're so excited to have you on. It's been really fascinating reading your recent book that's just come out, Rise, Become Who You Were Born to Be. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'd love to do a bit of a deep dive into some of the fantastic topics that you talk about in that. But I thought to start with, I'll just do a little bit of an intro so that our listeners know who you are. So Tegan Rein is a seasoned life and business coach with over 2 decades of experience in personal development, specializing in transforming lives. Her spiritual awakening in 2014, after reviving a drowned man, led her to leave the corporate world and become an entrepreneur. Tegan hosts full moon women's circles and retreats, integrating her spiritual insights with her professional work. She is praised as an exceptional coach who helps clients design and live their best lives with love, integrity, and respect. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it feels like it doesn't even scratch the surface. You've had some absolutely incredible experiences, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading about them in your book. So what are you doing at the moment? Like, what is your learnings or sort of how are you taking stock of life right now?
I'm in a real integration phase at the moment and having a really deep pause. So birthing the book was very much, and I'm a mother, very much like having a baby. So it was a 9-month incubation period. We wrote the book in a week at an intensive, and then we had to edit it and reread it and edited it. And as you've read in the book, there are, I think, 3 major life traumas that I discuss in the book, not in a lot of detail, but as a reference to overcoming, and that being a pivotal part of who I became and my work that I do now. And so I wouldn't be where I am now with the empathy that I have now if I hadn't been through that. But in reliving those traumas, there was some work that I needed to do. And so that 9-month period was a real stretch for me, and one that I'm really, really proud of. And I've totally embraced uncertainty through the whole process, which I'm sure we'll talk about that topic. They say when you write a book, you become what the book represents, and that is exactly what happened to me. And so once we launched on the 11th in November, it very quickly went to an Amazon bestseller in 5 categories, which was a little overwhelming for me. And I think I just wanted to really embrace that. I didn't want the wave to swallow me. I really wanted to surf the wave of that. And so that's what I've been doing, and received a check. Well, the last 3 months, my checks have been from like 8 different countries worldwide. It's just absolutely amazing. So I've actually been giving myself the blessing of putting out this impact into the world, and that giving me an opportunity to stop for a while. I've still got a handful of clients that I'm working with one-to-one. I don't think I could ever stop that, ever. However, I'm not taking on extra projects. I'm putting things back or asking if we can do it next year if it's a collaboration, so I can really be mum and really be with myself and enjoy stillness and patience and just really embrace the present moment like I never have before. And it's lovely. I think when you're ambitious and you're really striving and seeking to something, to then not have that ambition, to really feel like you've reached your pinnacle and done something that you're really proud of, is very important to enjoy the celebration of that. Because if we don't, we then just like monkey onto the next thing and monkey onto the next thing. And I think that that's a really strong message for your particular community and for what you offer on the OneQuest platform. There's plenty of opportunities to do that, to pause, to find stillness, and to really listen to what it is that your soul is saying and what you need in that moment. So sort of basking in the afterglow, which is lovely.
In what categories do you, off the top of your head, do you remember those categories that you went to number one in?
Yeah, there was personal development, personal growth, spirituality and religion, I think was another one. Women's empowerment or something to do with women, and an inspiration and motivation, I think was all around those main keywords, which the whole book is about, which was fantastic. It felt very validating.
And I'd love to hear a little bit about the trauma.
Sure. So I grew up a dancer. So I can't remember how early it was now. I wrote about it in a book. I've got all my dates checked. I'm not great with my dates, but got them all checked before I printed the book. But it would have been around 5 or 6 or 6. That's right. 6 when I started dancing, because my mum, it was my 6th birthday, and I ran out on my 6th birthday and said to mum, right, I get to start ballet today. She's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, you promised me when I turned 6 I could start ballet. She was, apparently I did. Okay, we'll get you into dance classes. And so that really started a very strong level of discipline and consistency for me, which wasn't natural. I've always been a very hyperactive child. So that was something that was new to me. It was a bit uncomfortable, but I had a lot of potential and a lot of natural talent. And so my work ethic, even from 6 years old, was pretty obvious. It's one of the things that I have as a superpower, is that I can really laser focus on something and I can make it my obsession. So Tegan the ballerina began at 6, and I think I was about 23 when that identity started to break down for me. So that was a huge part of my life, and I can talk more about that if you like, but it was really the foundation of what then led to me going out into the world after finishing school and doing things like that. And my first boyfriend, I was 18 at the time, he was 19, was involved in an accident, a car accident, and became a quadriplegic. And we'd only been dating a few weeks. We'd known each other for a while, but we only started really dating and being really like in this honeymoon period for about 3.5 weeks. And he was in a coma for 3 weeks and 6 days, and he was in traction. And the hospital was a long way from home. Like, it was a good hour to get to the hospital and back. And I was there every day. The days that I wasn't there, I was feeling really guilty. So one of the things that I think this book really provides is, if there was a young, even girl or boy, but girl, who was reading the book at that coming of age, if I'd had the mindset tools that are available in the book at the time, I may have navigated that a lot easier, but I didn't. I made it all... I thought it was all my fault, and I made it mean something that I don't make it mean anymore because of the work that I've done. But, that trauma I turned into something positive, and I made a promise to him. So once he came out of a coma, which was an incredible day, I just really felt like I prayed for a miracle from God, and it had come. And so to sit with him and communicate with him was pretty special. And we got engaged in that moment. He came out of a coma. And so here I was, 18, engaged to a quadriplegic, and it took us about 16 weeks, 4 months, for our worlds to sort of fall apart. That was just not going to be possible for us. Like, it was just too stressful. We didn't really know each other. there was a lot of families reconnecting around him that hadn't seen each other for a long time. And so it just became pretty obvious that and me being there, even though I was helping and I love can get through anything kind of I really felt like he wanted me to have like a bit of a break from coming. So it was a bit of a push away, but then there was also a bit of relief in that for me as well. But in doing that, like we broke our hearts on top of everything that had happened. But we made a promise to each other, or I made a promise to him, that I would do everything in my power to live a full, able, embodied life, which is another chapter in the book. So I really took on life, and every opportunity that I got after that, I tried to say yes to, because others that I knew couldn't. So I've bungee jumped 7 times, I've skydived 3 times, I've traveled to 35 countries, I've gone for the business when I probably may not have gone to open up a business before that, because I was just really determined to milk it for every single day that I could of this life. So in my journey, though, after leaving him, I did introduce a lot of partying and moved out of home and just got caught up with the wrong group of people. And because I had this, I will take on anything and say yes to everything that gets offered to me, I probably lost a little bit of a filter that I'd had in the safety of living with my mum and dad. So I did go down the path of alcohol for the first time. Like, I hadn't really drunk before then. And I started working at a law firm, but I also started working at a nightclub. And it just chewed me up and spat me back out again. And I burnt out and found myself living back at home with my mum and dad and felt like a failure. But, it taught me a lot about who you hang out with and the people that you spend time with. And so that was probably a really good lesson at that time, and not probably that surprising for a 20-year-old to go and do those kind of things in their early 20s. But at the time, I felt just like that I'd really not taken on the opportunity or the promise that I'd made. So internally, I felt like I wasn't enough. And then I started a job where I did get an opportunity to work. It was face-to-face sales, and one of the promises was that you could own a business or open up a franchise of that business long-term. So I moved away from law, and I moved away from nightclubs, and I moved away from hospitality, and I went into sales. And eventually opened up my own sales and marketing company. I was really proud of that. I did that by age 23, and that had huge success. And it felt like I was back on track again. But yeah, I've had journeys along the way where I'd get myself into bad situations and get taken advantage of by people, and those traumas, some of them sexual, live with me to this day. And you don't ever really come over those. So each time I've gone through something that's really traumatic and really maybe have that sort of dark night of the soul, I've always sort of had in my head, look, one day this will be a story that I can share with other people. One day I'll write a book. And it really kept me alive, like it kept me going. And I have had suicidal tendencies. I talk about that in the book. And what was my light, and who were my supporters that I could call for help. So there's a lot of my personal stories in the book, because I think it gives people a framework to then lead into the more text of the book. So yeah, that's a little bit about my traumas. Is there anything in particular that you want to know more about?
I guess the interest for me especially is that, you've had so many of these kind of experiences that then led you and sort of continue to guide you, like the universe was giving you those little nudges. And you mentioned that, that if you don't take action, the universe will find a way to wake you up and put you on the right path anyway, which I absolutely love. And I've always found to be the case in my life too. Have you had those sort of pivotal light bulb moments that caused that sort of swap over into that more spiritual side? Or was it just, do you feel as though it was just that it was one thing after the other, and then you sort of fell into it?
Yeah. Look, at some point I ended up back in the closet spiritually. But I remember as a child, we'd go to I lived in Brisbane, and we'd go down to Byron Bay, and I'd have the lace up shoes around my legs, and I'd have the flowy little fairy dresses on, and I used to have this real interest in that kind of hippie spiritual alternative way of being. But then after doing all the ballet and then going to like a really high level private school as well, became quite institutionalized because you're in that environment for, years and years and years. So yeah, as each of these moments used to happen, it was like a call to come back to my spiritual self and not be thinking external and to be a lot more internal. There was a particular moment that you spoke about in my intro where I brought a man back to life who drowned. And I'd followed all of these bouncy balls to be in this place at this time. So I knew that I was meant to be there. And it was such an out-of-body experience to bring him back. And there was a group of us bringing him back. It wasn't all me on my own. I was doing the chest compressions. But when it happened, I had a real out-of-body experience, like my hands and my body had been taken over. I remember seeing or feeling like I'd grown like sort of angel wings. And my logical scientific brain wouldn't accept that after the event, but in the moment it was quite an overwhelming rush of adrenaline and experience. And I remember when he was out for 6 or 7 minutes, like he should have not been alive anymore. So for him to come back and to watch his eyes go from pinpricks to these big, beautiful black pools of life that we were just so connected through eyes when he came back. Before we had to roll him over and everything became real again because he started, coughing up a little bit of blood and he'd hurt his lungs and they had to then take him away on a gurney. And then the police were interviewing us. So it went from this like really spiritual experience to that. And look, by then I was high level corporate. I'd already had a couple of businesses. I was what I thought was defined as success in my life, but that moment completely shook me. It wasn't even just like a wake up call. It was like I actually came out of that event completely different. So if I was talking to someone and like they were talking to me and they had a sore shoulder or something and I'm moving their arm like this, like I noticed that I was doing the same thing and that I could feel like their pain in my shoulder. And I didn't really pick up on it for a few months, but like when I started to really connect into it, I noticed that I was really starting to feel pain that other people had. I could see if they were sad. Even to this day, like if I just go to like a library or something and I see someone behind the desk helping, then I'm going to help. This only happened yesterday. I can just see such sadness or like the spirit calling for help. And I never had that before. I didn't have that kind of awareness. So it definitely changed me. But like I said, I followed all the bouncy balls. Like I think I'm one of these people that can live a very aligned life and I can follow what I love and what calls to me and what lights me up. But each time I do, it also calls to me to be someone above who I believe I am, like bringing someone back to life. I didn't think that was going to be something in my lifetime that I would do for somebody else. And, mine was one instance. There's a lot of paramedics out there and nurses and people that do this daily who I just think are as angels. But yeah, my particular experience then, it convinced me to leave corporate and to follow my soul's work, which I believe is the coaching, or working with one soul to another in some way to help them see or be connected and then evolve in some way, whatever that looks like. And that's brought with it a little bit of mental health journey for me as well. So after the drowning, I did within about 4 months get diagnosed with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And I couldn't wrap my head around why have I done this heroic thing that I was being so punished. And that's where the mental illness was happening. There was like a disconnect. There wasn't an acceptance for me. And it's still PTSD is something that I live with and struggle with now still. I had 6 flares last year that lasted for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. But because of the teachings in the book, I've been able to really learn how to sort of lean in when things get hard and to ask for help. I never used to do that before. So yeah, I hope that answers the question and sheds a little bit more light, even more, into what's in the book. And I really hope people buy it and read it and get something from it that they can maybe, stop living a life other people want you to and follow what it is that your heart who you are and who you're meant to become. It's really, really, really important to me to share that with other people.
Being courageous.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, I'd love to just highlight a few things that you said there. With those experiences that you've been through, I love the way that you acknowledged that there was darkness and that there was challenges and that it wasn't comfortable and that there was a lot of, I guess, different layers that you had to work through to come through to the other side, to start the healing journey, to see the light, to be grateful for the experience you had because you've now grown and you're a better person for it, as terrible as that sounds. Thanks for sharing that before. It's really, I think, something that some people can get caught up in is that negativity and that negative talk, self-talk and all that sort of thing. And working through it can be quite challenging. So well done on doing that. But the vulnerability that you have already demonstrated with us, sharing about yourself, and in the book, I'm sure it goes into a lot more depth. And that's a really hard thing for some people to do as well, is just to be vulnerable, be courageous, and trust that they're on the right path in some way. And so this is what I love about what we're doing here.
I think it's a muscle you work up. It's like going to the gym and having, like, not being able to pick up the weights. Like, you can't just go and be vulnerable. I really think it's a cultural thing that we're getting better at, and it happens conversation per conversation. And a lot of people are talking more, and we're talking more across the world. And like, look at the three of us in the room all over Australia, you know, like there's more conversations happening and there's more opportunities to do that. But the way to be more vulnerable is to practice it. It's and to be around safe spaces where you can be vulnerable. That's probably more important. I'm very good at speaking vulnerably. I don't mind sitting down with people and being an open book and sharing things that have happened to me. I think I used to do it because I was seeking connection. So, like, if you met me in my 20s, I'd probably just tell you my life story, like, in the first 10 minutes, and people would think that was quite weird. And it took me a while to sort of figure out, like, why am I doing that? And could I just listen to their story instead of me talking? And now I realize that that is actually a gift that I have, that I can share it, but what's the purpose of me sharing it? And what's the impact that that's going to have as well? So there are trigger warnings in the book as well, because for some people, they will read my story and they will have an emotional response to it. And that was my biggest concern about putting the book out, was caring awesomely for the reader and making sure that their journey was not going to set them back in any way. And that's why I didn't go into too much detail of some of the things as well, because it wasn't necessary. But another thing you were saying before about talking about the darkness, most of my best friends have all had darkness and seem to constantly get into bigger traumas. And I'm just around people that seem to be called in this lifetime to go through major challenges. So it's easier for me to talk vulnerably. There might be somebody watching this podcast who might just think, gosh, I can never be that brave or that courageous and do that. But my muscle is really well worked up because I have these conversations and I lean into connections. If a friend of mine isn't returning my calls, there's a reason she's not returning my call, and I'll make an effort to send a gift or stay in contact or write a letter and really connect on a human level with people, because some people don't know how to lean in to ask for help when they're in pain yet. They're still processing and trying to process with their own thinking that they grew up with. Something else to talk about in the book is social conditioning. We need to really expand our thinking and learn how other people think and how other people overcome challenges, because there may be a better way and you could be living a happier life if you can learn to do that. Yeah.
And do you have a theory on, we're getting a little bit sidetracked, but do you have a theory on why some of these people constantly or maybe appear to be challenged ongoing? Do you have any experiences where you're like, oh, this is still happening?
Yeah, I think that this is my way of getting through life, I get, and it's only my map and my opinion, but I feel I keep being called to go through things because I'm strong enough to go through them. And that each time I overcome something, it offers a story for someone else. I think And then I share the story, and then another thing happens, and you build up resilience and you learn to embrace uncertainty. You know, sometimes I can go through something quite tragic and be talking to someone and they're like, you don't seem too down about it. And I'm like, well, it's kind of like the Dalai Lama giggle to me. The Dalai Lama just has this view of the world. He sees chaos, he sees war, he sees peace, and yet he still has this beautiful childlike playfulness. This, I could see his picture of a smile in my mind. I'm not sure if you can see it too, but he can laugh through the chaos of what we are experiencing as a human. And I think that's more the acceptance piece I was talking about earlier. It's like, this too shall pass, and there'll be something that I need to learn as a warrior on my journey in life. This will give me another tool to go forward with. And I think I write about it in the book, but like, if a tree's growing and you put it in an environment where there's no wind, no weather, it's just kind of in a dome, like the tree doesn't grow with any trunk or substance. It even ends up stunted. But if you put it out in a big field and leave it for 100 years, this tree just grows so resilient and lush and big. And then, I mean, that's the way that I see my life. The more hits that I get, the stronger my trunk gets. The more I grow my branches, the more animals can come and live and be around the tree, and I can give back and I get fruit, and the acorn falls and more trees grow. Like, I just see life as this real bigger picture. And I think that each little hump doesn't seem as big as it used to me for that reason. And I think that's a powerful way to think.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Love it.
It really is amazing. It's fantastic to look at success, especially when it's more in the form of your own personal growth. Instead, you know, we're so conditioned as a society to look at success as, you know, the corporate job, or this, like you said, the sales and marketing job, or the fact that you win these awards, or, you know, whatever that is, where really it seems quite clear that to you success is really that internal relationship that you have with yourself, and really fostering that. Do you have things that you know, sort of encourage your clients to do to help them to sort of really work on that more, and to tap into that side of themselves more, instead of looking for that external kind of
Gratification.
Recognition. And recognition from outside.
External gratification doesn't work very well. Like, I have a 4-year-old boy, and I understand that if he gets a present, he gets a dopamine hit, and within a few hours he wants another present or wants one the next day. The external doesn't actually give us it doesn't feed the soul. It's more of a dopamine hit. It's more of an addiction to, and I could talk all about becoming a minimalist as well, but it's more like less is more, and experiences to me have always been the best present. So my family knows that if it's a birthday, whatever, I really love the gift of an experience with them where we can do something as a family. Perhaps I get a photo that I can then go back and cherish and look over in the future. I've always been a very experiential person. That's why I traveled. I want to understand other people's perspectives and debunk the social upbringing that I grew up with, that I absolutely love and adore, and probably have more perspective and appreciation for now because of it. But at the same time, that the way that we think, especially as a white, privileged Caucasian woman, isn't necessarily, you know, really lowers the ego. Because it's just my opinion compared to the other people that I've met in the world. And so, yes, for me, success, I think, especially in the work that I do now, it's really loud for me if I see people that aren't living a work-life balance. I get very passionate when I work with people who just aren't getting the message from their body, or that aren't getting the message from all of the signs that are showing up in their life, that they really need to slow down. And I'm almost pushing a bit of fear onto them, because I'm like, if you don't wake up and see what's happening, the universe will smack you dead in your tracks. You will have a stroke, a heart attack, fall down, the business will collapse, COVID will come. Like, it's horrible, but this is what's happened to me. Like, I didn't have a heart attack or a stroke, but, you know, I got dengue fever and I had to be in Bali, you know, for a really long time, going through, I know that's spoken about in the book as well, where I had to stop and think, look, I don't think that was my fault that happened. but I do think that I wasn't listening to nudges from the universe up until that point. So success for me now is really work-life balance, and probably even just less work now, and just really a lot more just savoring and cherishing the moments with my parents, who are really young 70-year-olds, and my beautiful 4-year-old boy. It's this time and what's happening right now will not be here in 5 years' time. It will be different. And so I really want to cherish it and enjoy it. And when I was living down in Melbourne doing corporate, like, family wasn't on my radar. I would literally leave on Christmas Eve, come home for Christmas, and be back on Boxing Day and in the office on the 27th at 7:15 in the morning to work until 8 o'clock at night, to run a corporate job, to have businesses on the side, plus studying my life coaching. Like, I was just in this machine of what I thought was success. Yeah, I was bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but I was so empty and I was so unhappy, and that's panic attacks were happening, and I was just like totally not awake to life. And it's so important to be.
Absolutely. A lot of people live that life, busy, lots of clutter, lots of noise, and no awareness. Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
On the other side of it, and hopefully you can share a bit about your retreats that you do, but on the other side of it, there's quite a lot of magic, and there's beauty, and there's so many things to be grateful for. If
some people can't even access that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about your retreats a little bit.
Okay. All right. So that's okay. Well, they kind of tie into each other, because the reason that I haven't run a full moon women's circle for a year, and I haven't run a retreat for the same time, but I ran them for 10 years, and I attended them in Melbourne for a good 12 months. 1 month for 12 months before I came to Cairns. Couldn't find the kind of women's circle that I wanted, so I created my own one. And what I noticed was that some people who are in pain and survival, we really live in a little bit of a faithless existence. Some people who have lost religion in this country, and having traveled to many other countries, it's just culture. It's, in Bali, for example, if you've been there, like every couple of hours, they basically go out to their house and they offer some sort of ritual of gratitude, which blew my mind. And I've been doing gratitude challenges on my website and things like that up until this point. So it was really talking to my soul. And when I came home, I was like, I really need to get these women's circles going. It was after I'd had the dengue fever, and I was recontemplating what I was going to do. And I didn't go back to corporate. I literally got dengue fever, came back to Cairns, didn't even go back to Melbourne, moved in with my parents and started my life coaching journey. And so the circles that I run are part of that. And I wanted a place for people to come if they were in pain and survival. So you were just talking about bliss and happiness, and there's so much of this to access in life, but there's many, many, many people who don't access that. I remember having an hour conversation with a friend about what bliss meant. And I walked away really sad because she couldn't access or understand through anything that I was speaking what that meant. She couldn't attach herself to any of the vibrational moments that I'd had. And in my circle, like if I took a photo of someone before they come in and after, there is a connection with something of a lift in their vibration that they feel internally. So we do chanting, we do meditation, but most importantly, we do a releasing ceremony. And the releasing ceremony is talked about in the book. It's explained how to do one. It's all there. Just be fire safe. But yeah, you basically write on a piece of paper what you no longer want to serve you in your life, and you burn it, and then you have someone witness you do that. And so we do that in circle. And the power, and I've done men and women's circles, but I really like the women's circles, particularly under the full moon. It kind of just brings with it, people connect to the fact that there's something greater than us out there, whatever that is for each person. There's no belief systems imposed on anyone. Everyone's welcome. I have Christians come, I have Buddhists come, all over. But we come in there and we're so unified. And then people share, like, I would like to release this tumor out of my body. And straight away, no one's thinking about themselves anymore, and automatically got this empathy for the other woman in the room, who is then feeling so much love because everyone now knows her secret. that she hasn't told anyone, that's done this really safe space. And then we're all chanting for that to leave for her. We're all willing that for her. And she leaves thinking, wow, like, here's humanity. Here's this connection of womanhood where people have come together and they all want the best for me. And the other women leave going, okay, let's put my problems into perspective, you know? So it's really good on the ego for everybody. And everyone gets their turn, everyone gets their voice, everyone gets to release. And then normally by the end, we're doing sort of like singing as a group, or we might hold hands in the circle. I pass oils around for people to smell as well, which can be quite uplifting. And everybody leaves with a smile on their face. There's tears that get shed sometimes, but most people leave hugging the stranger next to them that they couldn't even say hello to when they walked in. They just came in their space, sat down on their chair, like afraid to connect with someone. And by the end, they're all like sisters. It's just amazing. So that's the work that I did for a decade. I needed a break from that to write the book because I needed to go internal and address my own traumas and things like that again. But I feel very called to do them again soon. There's men's circles as well. There's so much online that people can access, honestly. If you're not feeling like going out to a circle though and a live retreat, there's so much stuff offered online. Some you can show up to and not even have your video on. They welcome it. They're like, we just want you here. Like, you don't even have to have your video on if you're an introvert. Or it's just about connecting and leading in and asking for help when you're actually taught in your whole life to sort of retract. And I think that comes back to safety, because I think that people aren't vulnerable because they're afraid they're going to get hurt by sharing their vulnerability. And that's unfortunately the culture that we were in. But I think as we grow up and we talk more about mental health, and it's okay to go see a psychologist, and you know, it's okay now. It's a lot better than it was, 30 years ago, and it will be so much better again another 30 years. So I think this will continue to be better for us to stay a bit more connected as opposed to disconnected. We're not good on our own. We're not meant to be alone. When a newborn baby is born, it wants skin to skin. And then how much skin to skin have you had in the last week? Like, check in with yourself. Like, have I touched an animal or a tree or a human being in the last week? And if I haven't, put your feet on the earth. Go outside and just put your feet on the grass and connect.
Community is so important, isn't it? Like,
everything.
It
really does have to be a
how important
community.
it is.
It has to be a right, safe community. One of the things that the Buddhists say is, like, when you go into a temple, there are rules and regulations to being a Buddhist, for example. Probably the same in a Christian church or whatever you believe in. There's rules in place because they want to make sure that people are looked after with empathy. And I talk about in the book, empathy plus boundaries, which is the rules, equals the compassion. Because I believe that there can be people can take advantage of that empathy, and then you can become an enabler of bad behavior of others, and that doesn't help society. So I think there needs to be empathy and boundaries. And if you want me to talk more about that, I can, but I'll just leave it at that for now.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. And you've spent so much time really supporting, your local community and all those, beautiful souls who are really looking for that support and connection. Do you have any tips for people of things that they can do to help support themselves? So outside of those beautiful community groups, do you have habits or routines that you feel really help support that, connection to self, but also help keep you grounded, especially when you're in really, sort of more stressful situations and sort of really in the throes of life.
Daily, still an issue for me. Like, I don't think it's ever something that you ever really got used to. Like, if you're a tree out in the field, like we're talking about before, like, there's going to be times that lightning could hit. There's going to be times that there's going to be a storm. Like, you're still going to go through it. I think it was Tegan Rein that said, like, the same wind blows on us all or something, but it's how you set the sail in the storm. And I think your mindset and the way you think is that sail. So that really spoke to me. And so there's a number of things here. Number one, you are not your thoughts. So the first thing is read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, because that will you'll at least learn that your thoughts are separate to you and how to do that. Stillness If you can't meditate and completely go still, then that's the work you've got to do. So between here and here was silence. So yeah, stillness, meditation, and just really getting to a place of non-reaction is probably what I constantly seek on a daily basis. And yeah, that comes through grounding techniques. So putting your feet on the earth, sitting in the sunlight, drinking the right amount of water, eating soul-nourished foods. And I'm not great with that. I'm still working on that every day. But I know that whenever I'm in like a bit of a crisis, so before a women's circle, I will get into the cleanest food that I can. I'll make sure that I've reduced any kind of outside noise. I kind of go into a space where I'm, trying to get myself into a really clean space before a circle. But the same thing happens when crisis happens in my life. So I just start to remove anything that is not serving me. And if there's anything in my calendar that I can see that I've got coming up that makes me go, oh, I really should go to that, I try and reschedule it, because I don't want to should be going to anything. Like, I could go to that if I wanted to. I want to follow things that light me up. I want to do things that make me feel good. I like doing releasing ceremonies like I talk in the book. But yeah, look, it's all about connection. So if you can't connect with another human being, which is really where you need to go, then you have to start with connecting with self. And that is through all of these things that I'm talking about. Connect with the sun, connect with the moon, connect with the earth. Give yourself a hug, like in bed, and just hold yourself, or pat the cat for a while. Like, it's just really important to connect and touch and just be in this life. I hope that gives someone at least something to go, oh, I could do that.
Absolutely. I find I've got 2 little boys, and sometimes they can be very, very challenging. And I've found that at times when I'm not my best, I react in a way that I would rather not. Like, whether it's frustration or something, like I've said this to you like 10 times and you're still doing it, and then that comes out. But when I am in a good place, I know that, like, it's chalk and cheese. Like, it's a very small example of how we can be challenged and pushed at times, but when we're in a good place, it makes all the difference, I feel.
Look, you're human, you're having emotions. It's actually a really good thing. Like, if you cry in front of your boys. Let them know that it's okay to cry. Let them see how you resolve that issue within yourself. I think the biggest learning that I've learned as a parent is that I thought I could emotionally regulate really well. But in watching my son, who's like a beautiful, mirror, it's like, well, let me help you emotionally regulate. What do I actually do to get over an anger moment or an upset moment? Well, actually, I stop. I sit down. I really breathe. I connect with myself. I just take a moment to self-soothe and be with myself. And for your boys to see you do that is such a massive thing that wasn't necessarily taught to me in my day. And I don't know if you've ever been on my Facebook, like, I adore my parents. They are everything to me. I'm the luckiest girl in the world to have these parents. They grew up in a very different way of parenting. And so now it's actually it's not as warmly accepted to be cold and unemotional in our lifetime. We're raising the next generation, and we need to do that through example. So we make a mistake. The most important thing is that we apologize when the time's right. A couple of hours later, when we're all sitting in bed reading a book or something like that, might be the time to sort of have a deeper conversation and just own up to the fact that we're human and that we make mistakes and that we're actually feeling sorry and we're still thinking about it and processing that, so that there isn't shame, there isn't guilt, there isn't secrets. We're not doing these things behind closed doors. And I think this is what we do in women's circles as well, quite well. And that's why it's important to be in retreats, because you can do a course online, which is really important for awareness. You have to put those personal developments into practice. And that's done through relationships. I think I write in the book, if you want to go and change the world, go home and love your family. Like, it has to happen there first. And it would solve a lot of problems in the world if we could get that right. But yeah, the way we beat ourselves up, we don't want our kids to beat themselves up. So we need to figure out how not to do that anymore the best way that we can, because we want to, create that ripple effect.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably another element of the women's circles that you were talking about is when someone has come to that event and they have grown, they have evolved, they've transitioned, whatever it is, when they go back out to their community with their kids or with their partner, with their friends and their family, they are spreading that good energy, that better moment of their life. And hopefully it lifts everyone because, and you know, just coming back to the kids, I want to give them the best version of me. I want them to see all the good, all the bad, the emotion, the up and down, how to regulate, because I want them to go out into the world and be better people for people on planet. So there's just, we're coming back to that community and how we can help more people.
Beautiful.
By helping ourselves. We can go out there and, you know, it's not even about educating or sharing or teaching or anything like that. It's just about showing up in the world and being in a better place so that...
Authentically.
Yeah, that's right. And how that
Showing
process of osmosis happens, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Have you had a mentor or anyone who's truly inspired you? You've mentioned...
Yeah.
Sorry?
I was just about to mention Michelle, so thank you for asking. So it wouldn't be right not to mention her on this call. So my mentor and person that I look up to is a very good friend of mine for the last 20 years. Her name's Michelle with 1L Jones, and she created the Live Your Best Life movement, which is a global movement. And like one of the things we already did in Circle, but she talks about commonly is like, if you're crying, like allow the tears, like don't wipe them away, like don't go grab a tissue and wipe it away, like really let it fall. And if you get to do that and be witnessed by somebody else seeing your pain and seeing the tears actually drip, that in itself can complete the process of the pain. So she's just got so much enlightenment. We studied at the same coaching institute in Melbourne. So we've got some of the teachings in my book would overlay with some of the teachings in her book. But go check out her book as well, Live Your Best Life, on Amazon. Michelle Jones with 1L. But yeah, Michelle is just somebody who, well, Catherine knows her as well. She's like she's so attractive and magnetic in the way that she is so vulnerable, and she is warm and loving and compassionate. When I think of Michelle, I just see an image of a big heart, like she's all heart. And her teachings are very much about like going and doing an archaeological dig, like get curious and ask the questions and overturn the rocks in your life and really look in places where you may not have looked before. And maybe you can see that it's not about blaming other people and it's not about everything. Like maybe there's actually something in here that we can build, and that might then shift everything, because whatever you change internally will affect your external. It'll change the language that you're talking to people. It'll change the relationships you have. You'll attract better people into your life. So yeah, Michelle Jones, massive shout out, wonderful woman. Yeah, she's got an incredible course. She's got, I think, 3 courses now we've got on OneQuest. So we've got the 21-day manifesting challenge, which has often brought buckets of money into my life. It's been great, but also not just money, like it's brought better relationships, just all areas of my life have improved doing that. She's also got a beginner's meditation, which would be really good for someone who's just never even approached meditation before. She recorded that when she was a student, so it's really raw and authentic, and it's just easy to connect and build bond with her through that. It's not staged at all. It's just heart to heart, all Michelle. And then the flagship program that she has on OneQuest is the Best Life Blueprint program, which I've now completed 3 times. And every time I get something new from it, it's just, you know, if kids could have it at school, you know, like it would just bring you into awareness and teach you to be. And that's enough. That's all we're here for. And so it's a wonderful program. And allows you to design, create, and live your best life. So, yeah, definitely check that out if you're really looking at doing something. It's, I think, I can't remember how many videos it is now, but it's 10 modules, and I would allow 6 to 12 months to do it. Like it's a full
big program
integration.
It's a deep dive and absolutely sensational. I love.
And you can read the book as well. So if you don't have the money to do the course, you can just go and buy the book. Like I think it's a ridiculous price of $8 on Amazon with Kindle. I don't know, probably $30 or $40 for the paperback book. But yeah, a lot of our teachings are very similar. So there's a lot there around just asking the right questions, not just to others, but to yourself. And questions are very important in life, and who you ask those questions to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And don't go and ask your fat uncle how to lose weight.
Some of the things you touched on, like your experience when you were helping that man who drowned, there's some woo-woo in there, but you'll both feed in for this industry, and I'm sure you've had some more woo-woo moments. Is there anything else that you're comfortable sharing with us? Something that, I like to keep it a little bit tame, but sometimes I think it's good to talk about the other end of the spectrum when someone's been in this for a while. Like, what are some of the things that happen when people really dive, both feed in and have a go at healing and fixing them?
I think as people spiritually awaken, like, I never knew what the word empath was. I think I was about 24 when I read it for the first time, and I had to go and like look it up on Wikipedia or whatever to work out like what is an empath. And as I was explaining it, I was like, oh yeah, so that's what an empath is. I didn't relate to it at all. But after I had this drowning experience and I had the sort of angel moment, and I couldn't wrap my head around that, the word that I could attach to what I was experiencing by really empathizing with someone else's pain and almost seeing their aura. So like I don't see colors, but I can really see if someone's energy is shrunk and locked behind a cabinet and they're just not connecting with me at all. It's just like they could even be brainwashed in another headspace. It's just like I can't see their soul. I can't see into their eyes. I can't feel their heart. I just, that all changed for me. And that's when I started to understand that, okay, well, I probably do identify now with being an empath. But then that went a little bit too far for me, which I spoke about, where I think you can enable bad behavior, because if bad things were happening around me, or I was in a relationship with someone who was doing something that was really like, they weren't really awake. They knew what they were doing, but they weren't really awake to it yet. And I was offering justification as to why that was happening because of past childhood traumas or whatever, then that behavior continued to be. But I think it's important, if you do have that spiritual awakening and that empath, that you can, like I said, empathy equals boundaries equals compassion. Like, you still need to understand like the role that plays in society. So my woo-woo moments have kind of been all around that. Often I can really see more, I think now, because of my experiences and my depth of understanding. Like, I can really feel if somebody is going through something. I can really put myself in their shoes, and that can be painful. And so those moments have been really new for me in the last 20 years compared to my first 20, because I think I was very egotistical as a child, really quite often known as selfish, very bubbly, enthusiastic, but like, I want this, 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 and this, let's make it happen. Like, it was all about like, let's do it. And now I don't think I'm like that as much anymore. And I think it's because I can really see, like, if I'm like that, and if I'm going through a summer and really happy that someone else is going through a winter, that I can calibrate and I can be like, oh, okay, like, we're in different spaces at the moment, and how can I empathize with you, but also still hold space for you without kind of falling into your victim story and allowing that to fester, because that is not good for people. And so I think that can be a little bit woo-woo for people to even have that kind of conversation. Other woo-woo things that have happened, I really connect with the moon. That's new. That sort of started happening since my sort of dengue fever thing. Yeah, like, if it's a full moon, like, I don't even follow the full moon anymore. I just know in my body if it is, because I feel different. I know if it's a new moon because I'm really clear, and so I'm really sort of connected to energy now, which is really woo-woo to have a conversation with people. I love astrology, but I'm also still very mindful that astrology is there as a tool. And because I grew up understanding the Bible and Christianity, and I've traveled all these worlds and I've seen different religions, I think of astrology as another way of explaining things, and that people can attach meaning to for an opportunity for awareness, which I think all religions and faith offer people to do, which is positive. Kind of think if there's any other ones that, feeling what other people feel. Connecting to people that have passed over is probably easier for me now as well, which is a bit weird to say, actually, out loud. But I am I wouldn't say I'm psychic. I don't hear what people are saying to me, but in moments when I need something, like a rainbow might come and I know that my nana sent that. Like, just weird. Like, someone might hear that and go, what? Like, rainbows just come because of the light and the sun. But it always seems to happen at the right time for me. So I'm just like, oh, well, thanks, Nana, for the gift. So I do feel much more connected to my ancestral line. And when I am going through moments of pain, I somehow seem to, like when I was breastfeeding my baby, I remember being in a really, so tired, and I was crying. I was just like, can you please just feed so you can go to bed so I can go to sleep? And I just remember connecting with every other woman on the planet in that moment who was also breastfeeding, who was also crying, who was also feeling tired. And I just felt this massive connection to humankind, and it got me through it, and I just went on. So I have these different things in me now that weren't there before, which I'm really, really grateful for, and I would never want to lose that now.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
That's my weird me. Yeah.
I love that. Your stories are so inspiring, and your vulnerability and your openness it's really beautiful. And I know that there'll be a lot of people listening to this, and you're giving them courage with everything you say and the way you show up. And I love that you promote living your best life. I think, it's such an honor to be able to have connections with people like you, where you're really sort of being a forerunner of really showing us what we can achieve and who we can be and how we can really, be a light for ourselves in our community. And I think that's beautiful. So I didn't know if there was a tip or a mantra, or, I know you mentioned Eckhart Tolle and that you love his book, but, something that you sort of, live by, or it's a bit of a beacon for you?
I did think about this before I came on. Something one of, how you hear quotes throughout your whole life and there's certain ones that speak to you. The one that spoke to me when I was 8, pretty sure it was about 8. And it was, life's not about the number of breaths you take. It's the number of moments that take your breath away. Hopefully I said that right. So I think I've always had this feeling that life could just be gone tomorrow. And I do because I have gone through traumas and near-death experiences and helped other people pass over, I do quite often think of what life would be like if I'm not here. It was one of the drivers for writing the book. Should anything ever happen to me, my son has my voice in that book that he can pick up any time and really receive the best of me, because I put so much love and time and effort into that I really wanted it to be my wisdom that I could pass on. So legacy as well. And so, I think moments that take your breath away are something that I seek regularly. And that's kind of that's kind of the mantra I live my life by. I want to always create experiences. I got a little bit challenged by that once when Nana was passing over, and I was sitting with her, and she lost her memory towards the end because she had Alzheimer's. So it really debunked a lot of that thought for me, because she couldn't remember any of the memories that I'm building in my life. But, when the memories aren't there, you come back to present moment. And so that then comes back to the pause and the stillness and the savoring and the cherishing that we spoke about earlier. So I think they go hand in hand. That would be the mantra that I live my life by, is to really find these moments that are pinnacles, that really feel like, if you look back over the year, I did these 4 amazing things that I'm really proud of. I coach people. I did 400 hours in the last 2 years of coaching, and people are experts at telling you what they don't want. I kind of don't like hearing what people don't want anymore. I'm not that person. I want to know what you do want. Rephrase it and just figure out what you do want, and don't focus on what you don't want. Just focus on what you do want. And so that's something that I have always lived my life by. I think I wrote 100 goals that I wanted to tick off before I died, and I ticked them off by the time I was 30. So then I had to go and write another 100. And I don't think if you don't write them down, you don't get to do them. So, or you don't tell them to someone. So I think there's a little bit of chasing that for me to really have this experiential life.
Yeah. I love that. It's just been such a pleasure to talk to you today. Before we wrap up, was there anything else you feel like you wanted to cover today?
I think the biggest thing I'll leave you with is like contrast. So there's a lot about human emotion that we can learn, and I'm a human behavior specialist, but I think there's also me understanding human emotion. When we see other people that are inspiring, I think it's really a call within ourselves to step up. So like if somebody gives me a compliment now and says, thank you, you were doing that before, I was actually looking at you, and the contrast is, well, if you've got the voice to say that to me, then I expect someone will say that to you one day in the future, because you'll find your moment. And I stand on the shoulders of giants, because I remember when I would watch a podcast or something, and I would also have those moments. But it also works on the contrast theory. So if you're jealous of someone because of their success, that's also, whether it's inspirational or jealousy, it's actually still the same thing. It's your soul saying, oh, here's an emotional reaction or response. I'm trying to tell you something here. I'm trying to tell you that it's time for you to be brave and courageous. And they're the two words that people have used to describe me since I was a little girl. Like, it's always been brave and courageous. Ambition has come and gone, but brave and courageous has always been there. And I think I'd love to end on the note that people, whatever emotion you feel, whether it's shame or guilt or whether you are someone who can access bliss, do something with that and help the world, because there's people that can't. And so you already have a step above everyone else, that you can do that. You haven't been knocked down by life so much that you've got all these layers that aren't allowing you to access those feelings yet. So you've actually got something you can offer people. Go and fill your heart up, fill your cup up, overflow, and then share it with others.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Tegan. I've absolutely loved chatting with you today. You light my heart up. It's really beautiful. And I know there'll be so many people who listen to this, and, you do give other people courage and the bravery to be able to live their best life. And I think there's nothing better than to be able to be someone who can show people how to do that. And you've certainly done that. So it's been fabulous talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Buy the book.
Yeah. I'll make sure I put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's like so cheap. It's like, I think I've got it for $3.99 on Kindle now. So cheap. You can buy one on my website, or you can, just on Amazon if you want it even quicker. If you do it on my website, I'll sign it, I'll write a little note to you, and then I'll send it out. I'm really not that busy at the moment, so I love sending out, 10 or so books a week. Like, it's really lovely to have that personal experience with the person who wants to read it. So, yeah, and thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. I love everything about the OneQuest platform. I love the vibration and the energy of it. I love what it offers people, and I think it's a really wonderful portal for people to come into awareness, because spiritually awakening is a very scary concept. I did not grow up spiritual. I did not grow up. I'm very different to the rest of my family, and a lot of the stuff that I've spoken on, even here about, are conversations that I would have with my brother or my mum or my dad. Really, they've read the book, so they know, like, I'm spiritually out of the closet. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't have a community yet, like, OneQuest is the perfect place to go and to start connecting with yourself more through the programs that you offer. So I'm a big fan, and well done to you guys for what you've created as well.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on. Lovely to meet you. And thank you for all the shares. It's been really enjoyable.
Thank you.